And now it's my privilege to introduce you to big brother Chris Mitchell, who is a big believer in his little brother Adam and is going to share a very moving portrait of what a match really is. Chris Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm here to tell you, as Wendy said, about my little brother, Adam Smith, who I was matched with in the year 2000, soon after he entered 7th grade. Adam was an incredibly shy boy, but I was optimistic about the match because he was a sweet kid and because his mom, Flora, is just a remarkable person. What material things they lack, they try to make up in spirit and laughter. The family lives in a very tough neighborhood in Codman Square in Dorchester, in extreme poverty that few of us can imagine. Flora worked hard at the school cafeteria, among other jobs, to do the best she could to provide for a home that had just a few rooms, but somehow needed to accommodate a family of 8. Adam's grandmother, mom, and 6 kids, including a baby of a few months. Things didn't progress quite the way I'd hoped at first, in large part because of the trauma that Adam and his family had recently been through. Adam's brother Matthew was the oldest in the family, and in the absence of a father was Adam's best friend and role model. Matthew was a good kid and a good student, and he was working hard to pursue his dream of going to college when, a few months before we were matched, he was senselessly murdered walking home on the street they lived. He was 17 years old, shot in the back, the innocent victim of some sickening gang ritual, and the crime remains unsolved to this day. Matthew was dead before the ambulance arrived, and the family watched it all in sheer horror. Suddenly, 12-year-old Adam was the oldest male in the family, and from that moment assumed the role of father figure. Adam naturally was traumatized. He withdrew from 6th grade, he couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, and of course he was also very scared. As a new big brother, I had no idea how I could help, so I committed to what I could, a willingness to show up consistently and listen, which was a great plan if Adam would talk to me. Believe me, I didn't expect much given all he'd been through, but he was so quiet for so long, I couldn't help but think that he'd rather be anywhere but with me. About 6 months into the relationship, without making any progress, we went to a great Red Sox game together, where even then, for 9 innings, he literally didn't say a word. I decided regrettably that I needed to make his life less hard than it already was and admit this wasn't working. I was devastated. It wasn't his fault. I thought I had just completely failed him. And so on a call with one of the Big Brothers Big Sisters match advocates who check in regularly to monitor the relationships, I told her it was time to acknowledge as much. The match advocate, however, had just spoken to Adam and his mom, Flora, and asked me, and I remember this like it was yesterday, if I wanted to hear their view of things. Sure. They said it's the very best part of Adam's week. He's so happy you're his big brother, and he waits in the front room of the apartment for hours for you to arrive. Well, it looked like I wasn't quitting. And somewhere in those next few months, it really started to work. I discovered the trick of not just taking out Adam for an afternoon, but also to invite the rest of his brothers and sisters. 4 or 5 at a time, all singing and laughing in unison. It was quite a scene. If I could only have a nickel for every person who looked at me trying to figure out what the hell was going on here as we bombed down the highway with the car swaying, I'd be in great shape. But years later, talking about the difficulty of those early days, Adam joked, "Hey, I just put you through the ringer to make sure you were going to keep showing up." Clearly, there was a lot more to that comment than just humor. From there, I think we were typical of a lot of matches. We went bowling, we went to the movies, we played sports, climbed Blue Hills, and in the summer, went to the water park. But most of all, we just got together at our headquarters, Bickford's in Dorchester, to eat and talk. I had coffee, Adam had 3/4 of the menu, and over those conversations, I truly fell in love with him. He was warm, kind, always put his family's interests first, and the only thing he ever asked me for was my time. He was also very, very funny, and it was blindingly clear how bright he was. Certain parts of his schooling, like his writing, were pretty raw, but he bought in totally and completely to the idea of school as the key to his future, and he was willing to keep his head down and work hard. It was obvious to me that with very different life circumstances, Adam would be an honors student at a suburban school on an academic fast track. So together we tried to change what circumstances we could, and Adam learned to adapt to those he couldn't. But this focus on school didn't detract at all from the fun. Even over school projects, we had a blast. And through it all, his sense of humor was always front and center. I remember one beautiful fall afternoon at a college football tailgate. We were playing catch, and to my way of thinking, broadening his horizons. When he ran up to me and said, "Chris, you know how you always say college is the door to another world for me? Is this what you mean?" And I thought, oh no, where is this going? And he said, "Because all of you standing around drinking beer in the middle of a bunch of parked cars, I hate to break it to you, but that's something guys in my neighborhood already do pretty well. And nobody's making them take physics to do it." And he ran off laughing. Here's another picture of Adam at my wedding with his brother and sister laughing at how white we all are. We became really close, and as he progressed through high school, his drive never wavered. To this day, I'm at a loss to explain how he managed this dual existence, working so hard in school while compensating for his reality. He felt the need to frequently steal books from school so that kids in his neighborhood wouldn't see him walking home with books. Every day on his walk, when he reached the spot where Matthew once lay, he just crossed the street. At night, he wasn't even guaranteed a free mattress at home. And so when the weekend rolled around, trust me, he was plenty ready to have fun, and I laughed as much as he did. I once read about a program at MIT called MITES, where talented minority high school juniors spend a summer living on campus taking advanced classes. When it came time, I encouraged him to apply, and Adam was one of only 2 students from Massachusetts who was accepted. It gets better. His reaction, typical Adam, was to express thanks for the opportunity, but say that he couldn't do it because the summer money that he made at his job was too valuable to his mom. Fortunately, we were able to find a sponsor to make it possible. The program was incredibly difficult, and I think Adam, for the first time, really appreciated just how far behind his starting line in both school and life was relative to the others, but he worked his tail off to prove he belonged. So when it came time to apply for college, Adam wanted to cast a really wide net. He applied to UMass, BU, Cornell, Tufts, Dartmouth, Georgetown, Duke, MIT, and Harvard. Those were fun days with those applications. He did pretty well. Adam was accepted to UMass, BU, Cornell, Tufts, Dartmouth, Georgetown, Duke, MIT, and Harvard. He ran the table. Now, I know enough Harvard people, some of whom are in this audience, to know it's like 4th grade compared to MIT. And that you can have fun there to boot. So I begged him to accept Harvard, but Adam felt extraordinary loyalty to MIT for the MITES program and a degree of comfort there already. So his decision was made. It was MIT, and that was that. But sure enough, freshman year was brutally difficult for him. Most of his classes were graded on a curve, and he was competing against the most brilliant minds from around the world, kids who had every life advantage. Adam was also experiencing unresolved feelings from Matthew's murder and a lot of guilt associated with what felt like abandoning his family. And so his sophomore spring, he took a semester off. Adam got back to a happier place personally, but MIT doesn't get any easier, and getting through was an awful grind. He was studying around the clock. At one point, he called me for advice because he was very close to transferring to UMass. I said, "Look, Adam, this level of stress is not what you deserve, and it certainly isn't the college experience I imagined for you. So you shouldn't go back if you'll be miserable. But if you think you can finish and you won't be unhappy, it is an MIT degree. It's your decision." And in true Adam fashion, he once again chose the harder path. And so I'm unbelievably proud to show you today a 2013 graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. With a degree in chemical engineering, no less. Adam is now, he's now living in New York City at his own place, working as a financial analyst at an investment bank. I asked what happened to the chemical engineer, and he said, "Chris, I'm not making the new soap." But he is happy. He recently over dinner, we talked through various possible career directions, pursue wealth and finance to help his family, maybe be an entrepreneur and change the world. I'm glad to say it was the conversation about multiple avenues of opportunity that I always dreamed would one day have. It's what we all dream about for our kids. I'll finish with this. When Adam was still in high school, I spent a week traveling, doing the college tour that's like a rite of passage for a lot of parents in this audience. And on one of our very long car rides, I asked Adam about gangs in his neighborhood. It obviously wasn't a topic I broached casually, given his history, and Adam's response just blew me away. He said, "You know, Chris, everybody has this perception that kids in gangs are fundamentally bad, like they're somehow born that way and destined to end up doing bad things. That's wrong. It's the opposite. All these kids start as good kids who don't see opportunities in life. Joining a gang for most is a search for family. You just have to understand where I grew up. None of these kids have dads, and you don't know anybody who went to college. So when you're a little kid and everybody tells you until they're blue in the face that you can do anything you want in life, nobody actually believes it. How can you? You don't know a single person in your world who can make college or a big dream tangible in reality. Chris, even when you were saying it, it took me years to believe it until I could really see it and touch it. And that's why the work Big Brothers of Mass Bay and Big Sisters of Mass Bay does is irreplaceable, because it gives thousands of kids who wouldn't otherwise have it a chance to see and feel and touch and believe in opportunity, all the while gaining the confidence of having another person who believes in them. Doesn't every kid deserve that, especially kids who are born to circumstances beyond their control? That belief and opportunity is what you're funding tonight, so please be generous. What you're also funding that's less obvious and far less important generally to all but us big brothers is an opportunity to profoundly change our lives too. I will be forever grateful to this organization for bringing Adam into my life, because he's truly given me 50 times more than what I could ever hope to return. Talk about providing something to believe in. Adam is family. My wife, Susie, almost impossibly somehow loves him more than I do, and he's now a big brother and role model to our own 3 kids. Believe me, not because of his fancy degree or his great job, but because if our kids end up half the human being than Adam is, we'll have been amazing parents. Adam, the last 13 years have felt like 13 minutes. I truly loved every second, and I know you know that. Maybe not when you and your brother took my car out and crashed it. I didn't love that. Just everything else. Okay, now for the fun part. I've been waiting a long time for Adam to get the recognition he deserves. His achievements are obvious, his sacrifices aren't. So for all the corners he didn't cut, all the shortcuts he didn't take, the basketball games he didn't play in the neighborhood because homework was due, for all the front porches he didn't sit in on summer nights because it was just better to be home, instead of being consumed by the things he didn't have, a dad, an older brother, anything material, he looked past distractions and focused on what he did: love, and faith, and a great mom and family, and of course his own courage. And while those things should never be all you get, somehow, some way, Adam made it enough. Adam, you told me a big piece of what was driving you was to honor Matthew's life, and I can assure you that you've made him very, very proud. So, where is he? Can I please get a round of applause for my friend and my hero, Adam Smith?